Okay, so we're starting off in constructive rest. As I mentioned, feet wide, knees together. This is a very low back supportive position, which is why we're starting this way, since that's the theme of our practice. Hmm. So take a moment to settle in here, maybe noticing which parts of your back are touching the floor. Hopefully, you've got a bit of a lumbar curve so that your whole back isn't smushed down to the floor. You've got your pelvis grounded down and the backs of your ribs are connected, backs of your shoulder blades. And as you breathe here, notice where your breath is coming into your belly or your chest, or where is it? Where's your breath? Sometimes it can feel soothing to breathe into the belly, especially if you have like belly aches or cramps or something. It can feel nice. Or another way I like to cue the breath is breathing in to the rib cage, trying to feel some expansion in your rib cage outwards. So if you have your arms next to you, you're kind of trying to breathe outwards into your arms. So just take some time noticing where your breath is, maybe experimenting with different ways of breathing. And we'll begin our practice by keeping our feet wide and starting to knock your knees left and right. And you can start by doing both knees at the same time. And if you want, if there's space, you can bring your arms out wide. And what I like to do is, let's say if my knees are knocked over to the left, I really kind of press down my right knee towards the floor. And then I bring my knees over to the right, and then I press my left knee down. So the knee that's kind of in the center of the mat, I try to press down a little bit more to get a little extra internal rotation. And then we'll try this in a bit of a different way. We'll bring the knees back up to center, and we'll just let the right knee flop out to the right. And then it kind of starts to bring the left knee over with it. And then we'll bring the left knee up to center. The left knee is only moving, and then at one point it'll start to bring the right knee with it. And then the right knee starts to fold over to the left. And so you're kind of like letting one leg lead, and then the other leg follows, which creates a bit of a different sensation, maybe some more opening in the inner thighs as well. And if you want, you can, excuse me, turn your head to the left as you bring your knees over to the right and vice versa. We'll do one more each side. And then we'll bring the knees back up to center. Bring the heels together and let the knees fall wide. So you're in Baddha Konasana, butterfly. And then just keeping the heels pressed together, start to bring your knees back up so that your knees are facing the ceiling and they're touching each other. Maybe do a little squeeze in between your thighs, and then open back up. And try not to just let your knees drop open. See if you can kind of control the descent. And then, right when gravity is trying to take over, we'll start to bring the knees back up again. And so, you're doing this kind of slow and controlled butterfly wing flapping. You may notice the more you press your heels down, the more you get some engagement in your hips as well. It's kind of interesting. Okay, we'll do one more, and then your knees will come back up together, and then we'll plant our feet down and we'll start to rock. So you can kind of use your feet to rock your body back and forth, up and down. So I'm pulling with my feet up, like I'm trying to pull my heels towards my body, and then it's causing my body to sort of just like rock back and forth, a little bouncy movement. And then we can slow that movement down and start to turn it into a more of a pelvic rock. And so we're just kind of now focusing the movement on the pelvis and at, and we'll press the pelvis down and then smush the low back down. Basically, we're going back and forth between those two. So you're pressing the pelvis down, letting the low back arch, and then you're smushing the low back down, letting the pelvis come off a little bit off the ground and going back and forth between those two. A low back massage. Okay, great. Find the place where your pelvis is more neutral. So your back isn't too arched and your back also isn't smushed all the way down onto the ground. It's somewhere in the middle. And then we'll raise our right knee up, keeping the right leg bent. We're going to place our palm on the thigh and push the palm against the thigh as we push the thigh against the palm. So this creates a bit of activity in the low back hip area. And it's like this sort of active release. So we're pushing both directions, holding there and breathing here. And then we'll lower that back down and we'll try the other side. So raising the left knee up, keeping it bent at about a 90 degree, and then placing your palm on the thigh, starting to push into the thigh as you push the thigh into the hand. Active release on the other side. Notice if your shoulder on the left side is kind of like coming up towards your ear. See if you can just gently release it back down. And we're continuing to hold and lowering it down. And then we'll do the other side again. So right side, so pressing the right palm into the right thigh. And this time, press your palm so much that your leg starts to move away from you. So your arm is starting to straighten, your leg is moving away from you. And then we'll push the thigh back, like the thigh is now winning the battle, and your elbow is bending more, and your thigh is coming towards you. So it's like as if you're trying to move your palm and your leg against each other back and forth, like you're moving in slow motion, or you're moving through something really sticky. And once we come back up to center, we can lower that back down. We'll do the same with the other side. So starting by pushing thigh and palm into each other, and then kind of bringing the knee in towards the chest, but continuing to push against that action. And then the palm gets even stronger and starts to push the knee away from the chest. And the whole time you're resisting in both directions. Do one more. So nice. And then we'll lower back down. Okay, let's bring both knees into the chest and just do some circles with the knees. So you can circle the knees in the same direction, or you could circle them in opposite directions, whatever feels better. Or maybe try out both. Coming back to your breath. Okay, let's bring the feet down and then we'll start to actually, you can keep your feet up because we're going to rock all the way up into a seat. Ah. And we'll start by sitting cross-legged. So it doesn't matter which foot is crossed in front of the other. And then from there, we're going to start hinging at the hips. And then when you can't hinge any farther, we'll bring the hands down and start to bend forward. Nice. Let's start to walk the hands back to center, and then we'll change the cross of the legs. So the other foot is in front, and do the same thing. Bend, hinging first, and then once you've hinged as much as you can place your palms in front of you and come down. If you do have a block, you could put it underneath your head, depending on how far it is from the ground or a pillow, or just let your head hang and feel a bit of a stretch in your neck. Great. And walk that back up. Okay. And then we'll bring the feet out into a straddle. So it doesn't need to be your widest straddle. In fact, I would see kind of where your legs just land without using your hands to help you. And then we'll do the same thing, starting with a hinge. And then when we can't hinge anymore, we can put the hands down in front. It can be really nice if you have like a chair or something, you can place your head on a chair. Or if you have like big pillows, or depending on how far you are from the ground, you can use some things to support you. So you're not just leaning forward. Or you can put if you have a couch in front of you, you can lean on the couch. I just don't have anything at the moment. Coming back to your breath, just doing a bit of passive stretching to open up inner thighs, lower back, hips. If you do want to make it more active, you can really press your heels into the ground and it creates some traction on the floor to allow you to go a little bit further or maybe feel more sensation. Okay, let's start to come on up. We're going to put our hands together like we have like we're holding on to something, and we'll start stirring. So it's like a cauldron. We're stirring a big cauldron around in a circle. One direction, and then another direction. Okay. Stir the big pot, the big cauldron. And then we'll come up to center. Nice. And we'll bend the knees. You can lean back on your hands. We'll bend the knees, keeping the feet wide, and do those same moves left to right with the knees. So you can play around with, again, trying to press your knee down into the center and then changing sides, trying to press the other knee down, back and forth, and let your pelvis lift off the ground on each side. Okay, and then if you want, you can take your hands off of the ground and continue to do the same thing, but with no hands. So now you have to use some core. It's a bit more active. Nice. Okay, great. From here, we'll move on to hands and knees. So on hands and knees, we'll start by stretching out the right leg behind you and tucking the toes and just kind of like opening up the back of the right leg. And then we'll do the other side, same thing. Okay, and then we'll come back to center and do some little circles with the knee. So you can start with the left side if you wish, and just kind of circle it around. Imagine you can kind of see the femur bone of your left leg circling around the hip socket. It doesn't have to be a big circle. You can even try to keep your pelvis somewhat still, changing directions. Pressing into the palms, or if your wrists need more support, you can come down to forearms or come up onto fists. And then we'll lower that side back down and do the other side. So circling the leg around, keeping the knee bent and keeping them small, keeping your pelvis somewhat still. Continuing to press into your hands as you move, doing this active circle. All right. And then we'll bring the knees wide and come into a child's pose. It'd be a nice way to stretch the lower back. Okay. Coming back into hands and knees, let's walk the feet out and we can come into downward facing dog. So pointing the feet up to the sky. And you can bend your knees as much as you like and maybe pedal out the heels left and right to get some stretch in the back of the legs. Okay, we're going to slowly start to walk up to standing. So, however that looks for you. And before we stand all the way up, if you want, you can come into a bit of a forward fold, either hands on the ground or on your shins or up on a elevated surface. You can keep your knees bent and maybe swing the upper body left and right in the forward fold. And then we'll start to come all the way up to standing. Nice. My head's My head's chopped off. There. Okay, great. So from here, let's bring the legs out wide and hands will come to the hips and then start to bend forward. This is a nice stretch for the lower back. And you can put your hands again, like up onto a surface or onto the ground or a block. And I like to kind of shimmy my hips left and right. It's like keeping your legs straight, but moving your hips left and right. And you can keep doing that movement and even start bending the knees, like bending one knee, bending the other knee. My cat was meowing to go out. Okay, we can stop back center and then start to walk the hands to the center, and you can bring them to your hips in order to come back up to standing. Nice. Alrighty. Let's bring our feet back towards each other. And then we'll do those same hip circles that we did on our knees, but now standing. So if you want to hold on to something, you're welcome to. And we'll start to do those hip circles. So the knee stays bent, and we're just circling the hip around or the leg around. Yeah. And you can do the other direction. One more circle, and then we'll lower it down and do the other side. Bringing the left knee up, out to the side, and behind, and then circle. Playing with balance in the morning. It's always good. You can change directions if you haven't yet. And then we'll come on down. Nice. And this time we'll bring the right knee up again, externally rotate it, and then place it on your leg for tree pose. And when we're in tree pose, we want to press into our standing foot. And your hands can be in prayer position, or they could be up, or they could be on your hips. And if you want to challenge your balance even more, you can change your gaze. So looking over to the left, looking over to the right, maybe looking up. Whoa. Nice. Okay, we'll switch sides. Bringing the left knee up, externally rotating, placing the foot on the leg, and then standing here in tree pose, pressing the standing foot down into the ground so you can feel that your hip is in and down on the right side. And then again, you've got some balance challenge options. You can change directions. So you can look a different direction, see what happens to your balance. And of course, the ultimate challenge, closing your eyes, maybe for a moment. Okay, and we'll come on down. Cool. Let's shake the legs out. Shake a, shake a, shake a. Okay. From here, we will start to walk ourselves back into a downward facing dog. So maybe reaching up to the sky, Good circle around, bringing the hands down towards the ground, and then walking out into a downward facing dog. Again, pedaling out the feet left and right. And then eventually bringing your knees down and coming into child's pose. That feels nice and restful. And then we'll start to come on up back into a seat once more. You can sit cross-legged or you can sit with your legs wide again. Up to you. And we'll reach the arms up to the sky, circle them around. Inhaling, reaching up again, around. One more time, and down. And taking a moment to check in with your low back and hips once more. Just notice how they feel now. All right. That's our short, sweet, short, sweet low back hip practice for today.